Good evening. Welcome to Tuesday Night Live, Live in Focus, Live in Focus. We're back. We've had a lot of holidays. I had COVID for a while, so I wasn't able to do our podcast. I did a couple of podcasts on Thursday nights, but we're back. A new year, a new focus, new excitement in our lives. And we pray that you have a blessed and highly favored 2022. Can you believe it? 2022. I never thought I would see this, but I'm happy to be here tonight. So welcome to Tuesday Night Live, Life in Focus. Have you ever been thirsty? Really thirsty? I've never been lost in the desert without water, but I do remember in 1966, on a hot June day in Fort Polk, Louisiana, with the humidity at 90%, we went on a hike, a bivouac. It was 20 miles that we were going. We had 90 pounds on our back. I had a canteen that was 3/4 filled with water. And that was it. And halfway into the march, there was a water truck, but I missed it. So I had to go the complete 20 miles in that heat, sweating, with all that weight on my back, with only 3/4 of a canteen of water. And I tried to make it last, but I run out about 3/4 of the way through the march. I was trying to remember as I'm talking to you how long the march took. So if you take that we took 3 miles an hour into 21 it took us about 5 hours to make the march from the time we started till the time we arrived or where we were going. By the time we got there, I was extremely thirsty. Extremely thirsty. And it was so wonderful because they had already set up the camp. As far as the main things in the camp, we had to put up our own tents. And they had what they called a lister bag. It was a green bag that had a bunch of spouts around the outside of it at the bottom, and it was full of ice water. It was the most wonderful tasting water that I think I'd ever experienced in my life. And so you had to be careful and not drink too much, or you would get what they call stomach cramps. And I did not want that. But it was wonderful to get a drink of water after being so thirsty. So the question is tonight, are you thirsty? Not for natural water. Most of us have access to natural water. Most of us drink bottled water anymore, which is weird. If you'd have told my grandpa back in the early 1900s that he would have paid $1 to $2 a bottle for water, he would have told you were not very right in the head, okay? Because nobody paid for water. It was basically free. Everybody had wells, you drew water, and those type of things. So, are you thirsty for a change in your life? A change in your life. Are you thirsty? Do you feel like you're in a desert place? You've tried to change your life multitudes of times, and it has not worked. I know we've been through several, all of us have been through several New Years. I've been through 75 of them, 76 by now, New Years, and I never thought I'd see that many New Years, but we've all been through New Years, and we have made New Year's resolutions. I'm going to change. I'm going to change my life. I'm going to be better. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. Whatever it was that you made about your New Year's resolutions and what you were going to do this next year. My son ran a gym for a while, and in January, in the end of December and January, he sold a lot of memberships. And most of those people that bought memberships came for 2 to 3 weeks, some of them for 6 weeks, and then it dropped off dramatically. So they made a New Year's resolution that they were going to get in shape, and their resolution lasted for 2 to 6 weeks for most of them. Some people made it for the whole year and actually had a lifestyle change, but most of them did not. So, what do you want to happen in your life in 2022? How thirsty are you for a new life, to change? We've been talking the last couple of weeks, if you've tuned in, even though we were doing it on Thursday nights, about change, about total change, about being born again. What does that really mean, to be born again? We talked about how a baby, when they're born, they're in their mother's womb and they're in water, and when they are born, the water breaks and the child is born in a pool of water, basically, born in water, because they flow out as the water flows out. Most of the children do, not all the time. So, and then we know that in Christianity, that we talk about being baptized. We talk about being born not only of the Spirit, but also of the water. Nicodemus, a guy, came to Jesus. He was a bishop, and he came to Jesus and he said, what must I do to enter the kingdom of heaven? And Jesus said, you got to be born again. He said, well, that's crazy. How can I enter and get back my mother's womb and be born again? So when a child is born, they've never been seen before. Although in this day and time, we have ultrasounds that can almost be surreal about how clear and concise they are. But in the flesh, they've never been seen before. They're born, they're brand new. So, what is this new person that you want to be? You need to be born again. Totally changed. Okay? Totally changed. You have to make up your mind that you're going to, God said He would make us a new person. He called it a new creation. He would recreate us in totality. So what do you want to be? What do you want to change in your life? Are you timid? Are you not dedicated and disciplined? Do you not have responsibility? A multiplicity of things that we can be. I would like to speak with more authority, not to take charge of people, but I would like the words that I speak, that people would listen to them and hopefully help them in their lives and their issues that they have in their lives. Not to overpower them or to control people or anything like that. I would just like to have words that had impact on other people. That's what they said about Jesus. This man doesn't speak like the rest of the preachers we know, because he speaks as one that has authority. His words carry weight. They mean something. They're just not a bunch of words. They mean something. I have several things other I would like to change in my life. I would like to be totally honest, truthful, tell the truth all the time. All of us sometimes exaggerate, and don't always tell the whole truth, do we? We don't ever hurt anybody, but we need the truth, the Bible said, would set you free. Will set you free. So we go from being in the desert, thirsty, to a wonderful river and waterfalls. I don't know how many of you know much about the Bible, but in the Old Testament there's a deal that where the Israelites, they were called, the Hebrews, they were called, lived in a land called Egypt. And when they moved there were 70 of them. And as they lived there over time, they grew and multiplied and multiplied and multiplied. And the Egyptians became very scared of them and fearful of them because they thought these people are becoming more than we are. They have more people than we do. So if they decided to attack us or to side with our enemies, we'd be in trouble. So what they did was they made slaves out of them. They started working them very hard all the time, and they took away their freedom and all those things. And then, because they continued to multiply, they told them to kill all the boy babies that was born. They could let the girls live, but the boy babies they had to take away and kill them. And they didn't do it. But anyway, they were, from the time they arrived there, 70 people. Over the years, they grew and grew and grew to maybe 1 million people, maybe 1.5 million. There's all kind of conflicting numbers. But they grew and grew and grew. And the Egyptians were very fearful of them. So they tried to have everything that reduced the population growth among the Hebrews. And so their slavery got so bad that they began to call on God to deliver them from this slavery. Now, I've known a lot of people over the last 16, 17 years, I guess, 18 years, as we had another nonprofit for substance abuse, and we had a lot of our clients that went to prison, some of them that we got out of prison that we'd never met before, and they've been in prison a long time, and they were in that lifestyle. And a lot of them come to me and told me that they had been in prison so long that they were more comfortable in prison than they were on the outside. That puzzled me because I had never experienced prison life at all, but they had experienced it a long time. I had one gentleman that came to me several years ago. He had spent 28 years in prison, and so he came to me. He was looking for a better job. He was looking to get his life together better, and he told me this story. He went in 1985. He got out, 28 years? Somewhere around 2000, trying to think, 16 or 17. So you can imagine when he went in prison, there were no cell phones. There was no automatic gas pumps where you could just go fill your car up with a credit card. There were not very many technologies when he went in prison. And the internet was not there when he went in prison. So all those things were so different. So he went in the grocery store one day, and he went around, got all the groceries he wanted, and he got to the checkout stand, and the lady started checking out his groceries, and when she got through, she told him, well, that'll be so-and-so, and he just panicked and run out of the store because he didn't know what to do, and he was fearful. So the lifestyle change was so dramatic for him and for the others that I met. I had one guy that committed a crime so he could go back to prison. That was very odd to me also. Now these Hebrews that we're talking about, or refer to them as the children of Israel a lot of times. We look at them and God delivered them. God sent a guy named Moses and he led them out and they went across what they call a Red Sea. God rolled the Red Sea back. If you've ever seen the movie The Ten Commandments, you've seen this. And they got across and the Egyptians chased after them. They changed their mind because they had let them go because of different things that happened to them, the Egyptians. God sent a lot of different plagues, they were called, frogs and lice and hail and all kind of different things, Hail, and it killed their livestock. He sent locusts. He sent all kind of plagues, 10 plagues and all. And finally the Egyptians got tired of it and they let them go. They went and come up against the Red Sea with mountains on each side. And the Egyptians changed their minds, so they come with all their army and everything and all their chariots and come chasing after them to take them back to slavery. Well, God rolled the Red Sea back by a miracle, and the Hebrews all went across the sea on dry land. And when they all got out the other side, then the Egyptians chased after them. And when all the Egyptian army got into the Red Sea, God rolled the waters back and destroyed the Egyptian army. And then the Hebrews were totally free from the past. Couldn't go back because there was a sea there. Totally in a new, different world. Totally changed, as I told you about the young man that got out of prison after 28 years. Things were totally different. No longer, even though they were slaves, the Egyptians did feed them, did provide them water, did provide them housing, but now they were in just the open air. They had tents and those type of things, but they were not in the place that they were. They were in total unfamiliar territory. So if you want your life to change, you're going to have to go into total unfamiliar territory where you have never experienced the new type of life that's going to happen for you when you are born again. When you totally put off the old life that you were living. If you were used to going to bars, say, just for an example, and you had all your friends there and you went there and drank every night even though you might have hated yourself after you did it. But if you went there and you had all your friends and you laughed and talked and played pool, whatever you did, socialized, wherever you socialized at, whatever that was for you. Maybe you like to dance, so you go dance places. And I'm not saying dancing's a sin or anything like that. But what I'm saying is that when your life totally changed and you don't go to bars anymore and you don't go to the places that you used to anymore that cause problems in your life, it's a difficult transition that you are experiencing. A difficult transition. So they went from being slaves, the Egyptians taking care of them, somewhat like being in prison, and they tell you what time to get up, they tell you what time to eat, they tell you what you're going to eat, they tell you what you're going to do, and your life is totally structured, but you have no control over it. And that's the way it was with the Hebrews. Their life was totally structured, but they had no control over it. They were whipped and beaten and all kind of different things happened to them. And then when they got across the Red Sea, and they no longer had that structured life, and one thing, they didn't have access to water immediately, okay? So they begin to say, hey, Moses, what are we going to eat? There's a million of us. We're out here in the middle of nowhere. What are we going to eat? What are we going to drink? What are we going to do? They didn't know what to do. They were like a newborn child that has to be taken care of by its mother and father. Everything has to be supplied. A newborn baby can't do anything for itself. If you don't take care of it, it will die. Because it needs water, it needs a diaper change, it needs loving. Did you know that a newborn baby needs loving? In Romania, years and years ago, they had all these orphanages because people didn't take care of their children. I forget the story of how it all happened, but they had orphanages where all these babies were taken, and there were hundreds of them, and there were not enough caretakers to take care of them. They did feed them, they did change their diapers, but nobody ever helped them, nobody ever talked to them, and a lot of them died because they had no love. We're creatures that need love. And that's what God is. I'm sorry, my time's up. But we will continue this next Tuesday night. I want you to come back next Tuesday night and be with us, and we will continue this. It's time to go. 6:20. We do 20 minutes every Tuesday night from 6 to 6:20. That's sad to have to go, but I got to go. I love you very much. God bless you. Tune in next Tuesday night at 6 o'clock, and we'll be